Samsula.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Good
brother.
morning, brother. Good morning, John. Yes.
Hey, you know, the more I see you, the more handsome I think you are.
Oh, you.
And every time I see you, you get more and more better dressed, and I'm worse and worse dressed, you know.
No. I'll tell you what. I purposely wore this dress. This shirt. Sorry.
For me?
No. This shirt is a Raul shirt. No longer, I think. But my daughter, when she was after her SPM, she was working there. So I'm always proud to wear.
Yeah. That is cool. I thought you were dressing up for Marco Rubio.
Oh no! I
So
was
he was
trying
in-
to bump into him. I went to I had a lunch meeting at Mandarin Oriental,
Yeah.
but apparently I got the days wrong
You were
because
trying to doorstop him in media circles, in media terms.
oh, is that what it's
Yeah,
called?
yeah. Doorstop.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because the US they don't normally send someone so senior, right?
Right.
So are they trying to signify something because he's Secretary of State?
Yeah, you're
And
right.
Secretary of State is
You're
top
right.
three, top 4, right?
Yeah.
Defense, obviously, right? Treasury.
No. I mean,
So in terms of hierarchy, which one is it? Right?
in terms of, if I'm not mistaken, hierarchy is probably third or fourth in line.
Yeah. So number 2 is Treasury,
Or,
right?
Of course, is VP. Right?
Okay,
If you're
of course,
talking
yeah,
about
VP,
from the
VP.
point of view of actually, if anything were to happen to
Yeah.
the president, right?
Yeah.
So it goes, VP, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, is the Secretary of State.
Yeah. So number
Yeah.
3, right?
Yeah. I gotta refresh my knowledge on that.
So it's just interesting because I found, obviously he was here to represent US interests, but he also came here to talk to the China foreign minister. It was actually the foreign minister's congregation in KL, right? So it's kind of like seen as neutral ground in some sense.
I
Right.
think they're gonna have another round with the Chinese in Switzerland.
Yeah.
Soon.
But this is an ongoing series of
Yes.
discussions to keep things sweet because they've got this trade deal going on, these trade impasses and everything, right?
But I think it's more the discussion. What was more interesting to me was actually they met up with the Russian delegation,
Yeah.
right? Because you see, the Secretary of State is about foreign policy. The Secretary of State will not really negotiate on tariffs because that's the area of Howard Lutnick's, which is the Commerce Secretary, and also basically supporting the Commerce Secretary is the Treasury Secretary. Which is
Besant.
Besant,
Right, yeah.
right? So I think I was expecting actually the Undersecretary to come to be the one here. That's normally what they would do. But for Rubio to come to KL for the ASEAN summit, that was interesting. I thought it was, in essence, it felt like it was almost a signal from the Trump administration that, okay, you guys matter.
It's interesting.
Yes.
You're still important.
You're still important. And I wonder also because the Russian delegation they had a specific meeting with the Russian delegation. And definitely that's not talking about trade. That's basically talking about the war in
Geopolitics.
Ukraine. Yes.
So it's weird because it's like a very intricate game of chess, right? The
Yeah.
Russians and the Chinese and the Americans.
Right.
The Chinese are funding the Iranians because without the Chinese economic engine, Iran cannot survive from a fiscal standpoint, right?
True.
The Russians are obviously in a conflict with the Ukrainians. And so there's this whole BRICS movement going on. So in public, they seem to be having a dialogue or some kind of conversation. Behind the scenes, there's all this precious brewing and kind of simmering away. I personally, as a layman, I don't know what they talk about and how much progress they make. Was it just for optics of just being seen as having a frank dialogue? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of keeping things sane and on an even keel.
Yeah.
Because below the surface, there's all these things going on, right?
Yeah. I think that was, it's very interesting if you look at how Trump operates, right? Because Trump is a businessman and a deal maker. So he tends to operate from that standpoint, which is a very unusual or unlike almost any world leader that we've seen.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think he came in really sincerely, I know a lot of people don't like, to look at him from that point of view, considering, all the negative media, especially mainstream, on how the range they are with respect to Trump. But I think he sincerely feel that he could do a deal with Putin, right? And unfortunately, I think that has reached a stalemate, and hence, just recently, Russia had another drone strike, which is quite massive. So I think he is sending more arms to Ukraine. Um, it was said that, the word he used was defensive armament, right? So I think there will be a different strategy, which probably would include more sanctions if things does not improve. And I think it's a chess game between how he is dealing together both Russia and China. So let's see. I think it will be an interesting 3 to 4 months, if you ask me.
People talk about how, there's there's a heightened probability of conflict in the world. And then people say, is World War III coming and all that? Some people might say that actually it's upon us, but actually the way world wars are being fought now, it's not like the way it was fought in the 1940s, In today's era, it seems as if there's this ongoing phenomenon of wars being fought by proxy. Because you got the big world forces, right? And they are just funding, they are giving intelligence to, they're giving armaments or fiscal support to countries like Hamas or the Houthis, or to the Ukrainians or the Iranians, etc. But it's a tussle between the world wars, between the global forces, right? And you could say that actually it's upon us already.
I love the way you.
Do you know what I mean, right?
You know what? This is This is why you and I sort of mesh together, even sometimes when we come from different point of view.
Different worlds.
Yeah. Fundamentally, we see things. I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right? And that goes exactly why in the last podcast, I was just remembering how we finished it off on that conversation where I said I don't think that there will be a big fight and whatnot. It's exactly that. It's because the wars are by proxy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But because exactly the reason is if two persons know that they will cause great damage to each other by going directly at each other, they won't fight.
So
right?
they'll put the front lines of conflict in third world countries, which have got less
Correct.
to lose, right, from a collateral standpoint. But they need the armaments, they need the financial backing.
And the reason I tell you is very simple. Because we are living in the nuclear age.
Yeah.
Right? The threat, this mutual assured destruction concept, right, has really taken hold, and everybody knows that. So and as I said in the last podcast, I don't see a fight between the world powers directly at all. I'm not really concerned about that, and it's not being optimistic. It's being realistic. They are not madmen in that sense, right? And that's very different. And I was saying that again. That's very different from a theocratic regime. A theocratic regime doesn't care about this world, right? But a secular regime have to care, because for them this how they live, how they're going to survive matters. So I don't think you will see a Russia, US, China kinetic war ever happening.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's all fought via proxies.
Yeah.
Right? The question now is actually what is going to be very interesting is to see how Trump maneuvers all this, because whether we like it or not, however your bias or your pros towards any side come from, okay, the US being the democracy between the three, right, is going to be the most reasonable of all on how they're going to handle things from the short-term standpoint, because they've got elections every 4 years for the presidency, right? Whereas the other team can play the long game and do whatever they want to do with their proxies on the long game. So that's how I see it.
That's an assumption, Sam, because we've gotten used to the American way of life, and we are very in tune with American soft culture, right? We don't really know how China operates. Our assumption is that they are the ones, we tend to stick with the devil we know rather than the devil we don't. Who's to say that the Chinese kind of phenomenon won't be more acceptable to us in Asia? I don't know. I'm just playing the contrarian side. Do you know what I mean?
I know.
What I do know is that with every election cycles being 4 or 5 years in America, right, there's a lot of short-term noise. There's a lot of short-termism in the way America's politics play out, right? It's a bit like quarterly earnings in public listed companies, right? Do you know what I mean, right? You don't focus on the long term necessarily. You just focus on your 3-year tenure as CEO, which has obviously deleterious effects lah. With China, they've got 50-year plans, 100-year plans. They plan for the long, long term. Who's to say that is not more palatable in the future? I don't know. But what I do know is that I was looking at a map of trade maps, right? From the year 1990 to the year 2024. I just saw it on the news last night. In the year 1990, the US and Europe dominated global trade in terms of the colors. Dark blue is America, light blue is the European Union, and then China's trade footprint was largely confined to Asia, right? In 2024, the Chinese red had overtaken most of Asia and Southeast Asia, including Australasia, okay, as well as Southern Africa. Southern Africa, the bottom 2/3 on the eastern side. The rest of Europe, to a small degree, Europe, and of course, America, Canada, Mexico, the red of America. So they don't like it. I mean, they believe in domination. And so the thing is, which one? Because my concern is that we might be forced to make a decision in terms of our allegiances in the future in Asia, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, right? That is the concern. Do we get pushed? I mean, are we vulnerable enough from a third world party standpoint to be pushed into making a decision in the future?
I think if I look at that from that point of view of what you were asking, I mean, are we going to be forced to make?
Because Malaysia has always been non-aligned, right? As it is with Southeast Asia.
Well, let's put it this way. I think it has been done before, and it has been done successfully before by Lee Kuan Yew. All right? Singapore has threaded this line extremely well. Okay?
In an era of peace and harmony.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as we enter this new era,
well, it's still the era of peace of harmony, if you ask me, right? The thing is, even during his time, right, China was already rising with Deng around, and it was inevitable. You can see that coming. Okay, the influence was getting more in Southeast Asia, and if I go back to some of the interviews that Kuan Yew did. Right, he was very open about how he was handling it.
Yeah,
and I see still the same way. I think that you can be positive to both sides without being so aligned to either side. But that is a practical businessman way of doing things. And one thing that I think people misunderstand about China as well, when people start talking about, they have a 50-year long game and whatnot, it's not really that true either. I have been lately actually trying to understand more of China because obviously business are more affected, and financial backing seems to be getting more and more coming out of China in terms of funding capabilities. So I've been trying to understand a lot more about how China operates internally, how the CCP, because effectively what you're looking at is a one-party system that is akin to the PAP in Singapore, right? So there are factions within the CCP that wants to have a PAP model being implemented. And then there is a faction that is very much aligned to how the current Secretary General has rise to the point of becoming almost a cult-like figure. So there is a certain, shall we say, friction or realignment happening within China itself at the moment that has yet to see what is the exact result. At the end of the day, the CCP is not a monolith. That is what I have found. And this is less talked about in the mainstream media because either they are blinded by it, number one. Number two, nobody really understands what goes on internally in China because unless you are there, and then again, the information coming out of China itself is deeply censored.
Exactly. So it is completely the polar opposite of how America conducts. I mean, in terms of the current US administration, it is probably one of the most talkative, one of the most transparent and communicative in recent administrations, right? You've got Lutnick talking, you've got Besson talking, you've got Rubio talking to the press. You've got Trump always out there. You've got Caroline Leavitt constantly communicating ideas and philosophies to the rest of the world, right? Vance, etc., etc. In China, how much do they talk in an open and independent setting? Almost nothing, right? You've got a very sanitized version of the Chinese government's philosophy with the rest of the world. Outside of China, we don't know what's in their mind. We're constantly second guessing them.
Do you know how? I mean, not to be so. I think I'm not that familiar with Malaysian internal political mechanisms because that's never been my interest, but it's almost akin to, if you remember, at least for me, the days of UMNO, right? When UMNO was in power, we were a lot of time working on rumors.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, we used to call it,
and markets used to move ahead of developments.
Yeah, we
right?
used to say, there's a wayang kulit being played, the shadow play, what is seen in the newspaper is not actually what's going on. So if you put that on steroids, that is China CCP, right? So I am not, on one hand, if you understand that from that standpoint, that gives you an in into how you're going to research what goes on to China. That's what I felt. So I've been going into a bit of a deep dive, and I hope within the next few months, I would be getting more in tune with what I can get, because I do have business contacts in China, right? And they won't talk to you on camera, but they will tell you. So I can get from some of the what is published in South China Morning Post, what's published in Nikkei, and then what is coming out of certain commentators, and also fact check also with my business contacts in China. So that's going to be very interesting, because I looked at it from, as you well know what we like here, how does it impact geopolitical business, the economics of things, right? So this is going to be something that I think people really, to go back to what you were saying, people really have a misconception. It is really not a 50-year plan. Because why? You've got 3 or 4 factions that are jostling for power all the time. There are purges that goes on every 5 to 8 years, So it's not as clear cut romanticized as what people are saying.
Yeah, I mean the CCP is about 100 years old only, right? Essentially.
Yeah.
And remember the episode of Chow and Lai? He was here, then he just went, and then where he go,
Yes.
nobody knows, right?
Right.
So you're probably right. But I've been to China a lot in the last couple of years, and I do
Yes.
see what in China. I've been all the way east to Beijing and Harbin. I've been
Right.
all the way west to Tibet and Kunming, right?
Right.
And I saw one commonality. It is basically a peaceable society, a
Right.
prosperous, peaceable society that is highly obedient, because there's the presence of militia and security everywhere. There are cameras everywhere, right? You contrast what's happening in the US. There's incredible social disorder. There's incredible divide of wealth. There's a lot of pain and suffering in American society. Something like 50 or 60 million Americans are going. They are on they're on food stamps, right? There's basically fentanyl refuges all over America, like in Atlanta, for example. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that you've got two different systems, two different outcomes, and you've got these two superpowers essentially jostling to rule the world. One ostensibly wants to be number one, and that's it. The other one ostensibly seems to be of the belief that there's a common interest paradigm. I don't know. We are going to be caught in the middle of a
May I
pissing
push
match.
back on that narrative?
Which one? The fentanyl?
No. On the narrative that you've got two systems
The
that
different outcomes.
with different outcomes.
Yeah.
Okay, I would beg to differ.
Yeah.
All right. The reason is very simple. Most of the time when we travel, we don't travel and see the rest of the countryside.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
We tend to or be ushered either because of our tourism interests or our business interests
To the sanitized
to
areas.
the sanitized
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. Yeah. Okay. And the other thing we got to be very clear in our understanding of the system. America has always been a chaotic experiment. It's the nature of it, number one. Number two, because of the free press, we get both sides of the argument or the pictures. If you want to see the worst of America, you just rely on the party that is not in power and the media that supports them.
Yeah.
Okay? If you want to see the best of America, you go to where the party in power is supported in the media. Okay? You don't get that in China.
No, you don't.
Right?
So two different systems,
it's
right?
basically from your conclusion in that, right?
Yeah.
Your narrative is being shaped by a media narrative that is one, which is a free for all, right? You get both sides of the story. Whereas the other, you've got a sanitized version. Okay? It's almost like if you come to Malaysia and you come and stay with me, all right, my friends who come and stay with me, they're gonna see the first class of everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not gonna get the
Mad Sam.
So you know.
No,
so,
you're right. No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So that's the first thing.
I do stand perspective.
Right.
Okay.
So that's one thing
Yeah.
we have to be very clear. And I will tell you one thing from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Okay. I tend to actually, when I go any place, I tend to read between the lines and see things that actually gives me indications of how the real thing is in terms of how it really is, right? So, for example, let's take America. Okay, so if you go by the mainstream narrative from either how China would portray America to their citizens or to their or from pro-China media or pro-Democrat, or pro Republican media, okay? on democratic cities, you would think that actually it's all burning down. Okay? I go to Dallas, I go to Houston, I go to Miami.
Boomtown.
It's boomtown. It's not just boomtown. I mean, it's like it's beautiful. It's safe, right? Okay, there are areas you don't go, just like in KL, right? But it's clean, it's organized, right? But then you go to Fox News, right? And you watch LA. You watch how San Francisco is covered, right? It's a fentanyl infested meth town with homelessness at every corner.
Yeah.
Right? Now you go to CNN or you go to MSNBC, they will describe the riot in LA as being just some people burning tires, having fun.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the difference that you in terms of how you must look at things. Now, how I look at it when I'm the last trip I was down and we were staying in Santa Monica, right across from the from the pier. I was staying at the Georgian, and which is only about a few hundred meters from the pier. Here's the difference I saw, which was if I go back 4 years ago when the previous time I was there, or 3 years ago, the previous time, I can't remember. All right. There was hardly any homelessness across the Santa Monica Boulevard. But the last time I was there last Christmas, I could, there were people putting a few tents across from Santa Monica Boulevard. So that tells me already it's getting worse. Okay? So that's like what, That's like having homelessness if in the 2 or 3 tents at the KLCC park, right? You shouldn't be seeing that. Okay? So to me, that's an indication that California, in spite of Gavin Newsom's slickness, has not done a good job. So that's democracy. Democracy in its proper form. It's always chaotic.
Democracy is aligned with capitalism. And what is, I think, undeniable where capitalism is concerned is that it tends to leave people behind. Because capitalism, not just condones it, but it encourages a concentration of wealth, property ownership, equity ownership, and those people with assets have tended to do much, much better over the last few years than those who are just surviving from salary, paycheck to paycheck, right? Because inflation eats
I'm
up the
going to push you back on that as well.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that in most of the developed world, when I've traveled to them, including Italy, including the UK, including the US, there's an increasing swath of society which are being left behind by the system. Whether or not the powers that be can address that inequality, I don't know. But what I do know is that history tends to repeat itself. And inequality has always been one of the key ingredients behind social dissent, which has then led to populist leaders such as, at the time, Mussolini, Hitler, and so on. In the current era, Marine Le Pen, and to some extent, Donald Trump, even though he comes from a wealthy background. That's where the concern lies, because that inequality has led to popular leaders saying popular things, like, for example, make America great again. I'm not saying what he's doing is wrong. I believe in a lot of his doctrines, but what I'm saying is that there are a lot of people being left behind in developed societies, much fewer, I think, anecdotally at least, than in China. Because in China, there seems to be an approach to say, let's not leave too many people behind, let's bring them all along in this big, tidal wave of prosperity. And let's not have too many ultra-billionaires and too many, homeless, penniless people. Because when I was there, I saw nothing of the kind.
Let me put it this way, all right? Let me put it this way, and I think this is the difficult part about analyzing China.
Yeah.
Right? Because the statistics are coming from the CCP government.
I'm not looking at statistics.
No, not just talking about statistics,
Yeah.
right? But even the narrative that comes out, all right? Let's just put it this way as an indicator. Again, as I said, when I go anywhere,
Yeah.
I look at the underlying indicator and it gives me flags on what I should look at, right? And as I said to you, I have this sneaky suspicion of certain things that are beneath the surface that are not apparent in the way a democracy works, right? If you go to developed countries, if you go to the States, if you go to UK, you go to Australia, you know how the rich China children lives? They are very ostentatious.
Ostentatious, yeah.
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 Now when we say when they are living outside in that manner, okay, when their children is living outside in that manner, and it's very clearly can be seen. You can almost see a divide between the students or the youngsters that is coming from China compared to youngsters coming to from Malaysia or from Singapore, right? The divide is huge, right? Something is telling me something, okay? And you may not see it in China itself, but there is an underlying that we can't see. The other thing is also, but that is just...
So you're suggesting that there is obviously wealth inequality.
Not just that.
Whether in America, but also
exactly.
in China. I agree.
Not
I
just
agree.
that. Here I go again.
Yeah.
Right? How do we sweep? Just think about this, right? Just think about this. All the homelessness in San Francisco went away. You know, when they recently, if I'm not mistaken, they recently had what was that? When there was a visit from it escapes me.
So they just cleared the mess.
They just cleared the mess, and all of a sudden it's beautiful. Because the last time, again, because when I went for Christmas, we normally stay in this area called, I think it's called Union Central, where actually where most of the shoppings, the high end shoppings are, because obviously, you know, the wife wants to go shopping, right? and you know, the previous time I was there compared to the last time I was there, it was like night and day. But if you can sweep it down like that, why didn't they do that all the time, right? So you can obviously, it's almost like when people were saying, oh, it's election time, so all of a sudden now my village roads are going to be tarred or the bridge is going to be fixed, right? So I think I'm going to take everything. I have taken everything with a pinch of, not a pinch of salt. A truckload of salt.
Yeah, here's the difficulty, because when I consume the news now,
right,
I've got to consume everything with a pinch of salt.
Oh yeah,
I've got to try and read between the lines and understand where the source of the information from, what allegiances that platform has with who. And that's the big problem, because I think a lot of people who are trying to make sense of the world today, they don't have that. I think maybe they don't have that experience, because I've been in the news industry a long time.
Yeah.
In the old days, you used to be able to take them at face value, right? Whether it's The Economist or the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal, they more or less told the truth, more or less.
Yeah.
And there was a certain amount of balance. Today, I don't think you have that, whether from Asia or whether from the West. So here's the thing, right?
To be honest, it's always been
colored. It's always been colored.
It's always been colored.
I agree. Okay,
Yeah.
but it's the extent of the coloration.
Days, I think for at least the last decade or so, I think it has gotten worse.
Gotten much worse.
Yeah.
So what does this mean, right? Like my old editor at the Edge would say, what the fuck does this all mean, right? What does it mean when we talk about this thing? Well, for me, it's always been, what does it mean for us as a father, as a husband, as a son, as basically someone who's the guardian of my immediate family's future, right? How do I position myself to deal with this uncertain world with all this noise going on around me? right? China, US, geopolitics, conflict here, there, everywhere, right? That's what I'm trying to make sense. I mean, I think in some sense that's why we have this conversation as well, right? What does it mean? You're a business owner. I'm a business owner. You're slightly bigger than I am to some degree, but we're trying to make sense of this all, right? How do we position our chips for the future? How do we position our? So when I look at Donald Trump and I see Xi Jinping, right? Donald Trump is a businessman. Okay, he's great at deal making. Well, ostensibly, Xi Jinping seems to be much more of a strategic tactician, right? Is Donald Trump a chess player? Does he play 10, 15 moves ahead like Lee Kuan Yew used to do? I don't know. To me, between the two, does Xi Jinping play chess 5 to 10, 15 moves ahead? Probably more, but I don't know. He doesn't speak publicly very much, and if he does, I don't understand what he's saying. Are we
going to do a deep dive on the mind of Trump?
Why not, right? I mean, to some degree, what you see with Trump is what you know you're going to get. He is what he is. He is the typical WYSIWYG keyboard, right? With Xi Jinping, there's always second, third. It's like a bloody onion, you know.
Let's do this. Let's do this then. I think, okay, let me preface it in this way. I absolutely agree with you in the sense that this is exactly the reason why we have our podcast and this conversation is because I think we want to bring our audience a perspective that hopefully is unique.
Well, if anybody's even listening.
I know. And I think that actually, I pride myself to a certain extent. Again, with all humility, I have to try to say that.
I don't think you got any humility.
Is that in the times I've in my career from the start, I've realized one thing, that in order for you to get ahead, you have to be ahead of everybody else in terms of how you perceive the world, how you not just the business world, but also what's going on in terms of everything, right? So, and business is exactly that. Not just currently what's going on, but actually what's going to happen.
Yes.
Right? So you have to be ahead of the curve.
Constantly. Reading the tea leaves.
Ahead of everybody. Yeah. Right? So this is where I personally get into trouble with a lot of my friends or associates in my outlook of things. But I do find it's also the source of where I get ahead, because I read the tea leaves, and I think you do the same. We read the tea leaves.
Yeah, we try and read the tea leaves and make sense of it all.
Right. So I mean, I think let's to try and peel the onion of 2% at the same time is going to take too much of a let's leave Xi Jinping out of it for the time being, right? Or more, I would even say this, because when you talk about Jinping, you probably have to talk about the CCP as part and parcel of the whole discussion. But for an insight into what happens in America that affects the global economy, that affects the global business and life, because they are the biggest economy in the world, and it steals when the
arguably.
Okay. Well, still, if they, as what you said, if they, if they are sick, everybody sneezes.
Yeah.
Right. So, here's the interesting part and the more easier part with when you look at Donald Trump, when you read the tea leaves, when you understand the background, because why? There's so much written in America on him. There's so much that you can see from him himself, because he's constantly on TV and giving access to the media, which is, I think, even today, I would say almost unprecedented, right? Even compared to the previous presidents. And even his cabinets are following suit in terms of this. If you were to ask me, this is the best production value I've ever seen a president has ever done.
That one I agree with you.
Yeah,
He's great entertainment.
correct.
Yeah.
So if you go back, and you want to understand, as you rightly put, he has the mindset of actually an entrepreneur businessman who starts from the bottom up. And that's the first thing I get into trouble with a lot of people, because they've been conditioned to this narrative that he comes from a very wealthy family, which he does, undoubtedly. Okay? But I think what people do not understand is actually everything is relative. I first come to know of him. I think I don't know whether I've mentioned this before. He first came into my radar when I was in the college in the early 80s. Okay, he was part of an American professional football league that was a startup called the USFL, and he was the owner of New Jersey Generals. And that's when I said, because I was such a fan of American football. So, and the NFL, the professional football and college football plays, basically it's a fall game. So it's basically end August, September it starts, and it's end around February. Okay. And there was the whole summer, then later, you'll have no football. So I'm like, so I've got to start watching basketball, right? But so basketball was my second sport as far as I was concerned, right? So when he bought USFL, it was so successful, to be honest, the USFL, that that its demise was quite a letdown for me, but they were relatively successful from the early beginning in terms of popularity for summer football. Okay. So that's when I first got to his name came across. And then obviously he started appearing in movies, and Trump Tower came up and whatnot.
My knowledge of him, because of his many wives, and specifically Russian wives, right? Ivanka and...
that's when he was married to
right?
Ivanka. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Back in those days, right? And he was
Yeah.
always making the headlines. And he was a celebrity entrepreneur. I mean, make no mistake. So he's always liked the limelight.
And not make
Right.
mistakes about it. Even in
Correct.
the 80s,
So he's unapologetically...
unapologetically a playboy.
yeah. So then the thing is, right? For me, when I try and understand the Trump enigma, it also bears itself out in the manifestations of who he nominates to be on his cabinet or on his team. So it's quite a mixed bag. So I watched Caroline Levitt, the press secretary. I think she's bloody amazing. She's so young and she's so brilliant. Okay, Caroline Levitt. And then I see someone like Nick Adams. Nick Adams is this Australian turned US citizen. He's like a media guy, author, celebrity kind of person who has now been named the US ambassador to Malaysia, right? And I'm like, this guy is he's a joker.
Let's do this way.
Okay, so what does Trump represent? What is it? So
I think
he
would
names people to his team who are like him.
I would like to
necessarily.
do it this way. We're gonna go. Let's try and do a deep dive into what Trump is, who Trump is. What shapes him, how his mind works. And then we go into
This is all guesswork.
Why
by the
he's
way.
cabinet. This is all this all speculative through our reading of tea leaves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sitting as we do in Southeast Asia.
Correct. Okay? But here's what I see when I look at him, and I know him from that standpoint earlier on. I will go back to what your point is in terms of his nominations or his cabinet. Right, so let's see where he came from. Okay, so I've told people that this guy is what I called a blue collar business entrepreneur. All right, who became big. All right, and in order for you to go from that You have gone through failures. You have gone through hardships. Okay, in spite of you being started up, in essence, financed by your dad. Okay. Now, I personally, my parents are school teachers, right? By my partners, when we started out in our medium-sized business, I had my own small company to start off with. But when I started with my own friends, they came from a relatively wealthy family. In fact, their father funded the company. So in essence, I can, we had a platform that actually was funded by the dad, right? So I understand this. So we were struggling, even at the early stages, to with about 3-4 million type of funding in 1999, all right? And he was born and raised in Queens, New York.
His father was a property developer as well, albeit on a smaller scale, right?
His father is more of a property owner.
Property owner.
Right? His father was more of a property owner. He grew up, when he started out with his father, he was collecting rent from his property, from the properties of his father, right? He turned it around into being a property developer and big time property ownership, okay? Now, so that was an evolution in terms of that family business. So basically, he took over what was his father's relatively small property ownership into big-time property ownership by developing. Now, so that's why I keep telling people, that's a blue-collar entrepreneur who actually come from the bottom up. So if you come from there, you know what? And you must remember, he grew up in Queens. Queens is like what, It's like, not growing up.
It's like Cheras, isn't it?
It's like Cheras and Kepong.
Yeah.
Okay? You are not you're not blue blood like you are from let's call it, what do you call our this one in Dutamas or places like that. You're not a Bangsa guy, right? So for him, he's always the outsider from the elites.
Well,
yeah.
So it's all relative.
No, everything, again, I go to this point, right? Everything is relative. All right? Everything is relative, and people
saw himself as an outsider. He narrated himself as an outsider.
Not really.
No?
Not in the initial time. When you look at him from the 80s, actually, he was already placing himself as being the elite because that's what he wanted to be. Okay? But if you look at the reality of it, it's like almost like me. If you start asking me to speak Malay, the only way I can speak Malay is you're gonna hear my Kedah.
Sure.
Ha? Hana aku buat apa? Han cerita kat sini.
What? Well, that's deep, man.
There you go.
I can't speak Bahasa like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I always, when I go up to the mic, and I am forced to speak in Bahasa, I will first apologize. I said, hey, ni saya ni kan tak berapa pandai cakap bahasa Melayu. Cara betul-betul lah. Kalau boleh kan, you all tolerate lah sikit. Saya ni cakap bahasa Kedah.
So yeah, it's a deep one. So you think he's a bit of a chameleon, in other words.
Well, in other words, that's typical actually.
Of all politicians.
No. That's typical. I called it blue collar businessman, especially coming out of,
He may have been from Queens, but he was living in a mansion in Queens,
So
Do you know what I mean, right?
So what? I mean,
so he was confused because he's am I entitled or am I not entitled?
Bro, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
Even when I was living in Sungai Petani, one of my closest friends, lives in mansion in Sungai Petani. Okay.
So how did he see himself? Was he confused?
No. But he's always a Sungai Petani guy.
Yeah.
You know, we still go out and play at the municipal council football field, you know. And if you were to talk to him today, you won't know that he is actually
From privilege.
From privilege.
Yeah.
But unlike Trump, okay, Trump had the ambition to actually go beyond what his dad had already set him to do, or set him. In fact, I think he was that ambitious in terms of business to go way beyond that.
No, you're right, because collecting rent in New York to building buildings and owning buildings in New York, Manhattan is essentially the most expensive address in the world, right?
And not just New York. Basically,
Right.
I mean, to
In
owning
central-
golf courses
correct.
and
in
whatnot.
Scotland and whatnot all over the world,
You know,
right?
if you really understand Mar-a-Lago and
Yeah.
the history of that place,
Yeah.
right, and what he has done with that place,
No,
this is a very different character than his father,
yeah.
right?
So obviously he's taken what his father has given him and then multiplied that by an
By a
nth
factor of
quantum.
100,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. So he's
then
obviously
go.
very ambitious and he had very, very big dreams. And I think he's got those same dreams for America. His methodology is what rankles with a
And
lot of people.
here's the thing: why that methodology and what people see. Okay, when you are when you are a construction guy or a property guy, coming up in that manner, you have actually been sitting around with your people
With your workers.
who are actually
yeah.
doing all the bricklaying, your concierge, etc. So you know the common folks. That is why he is so relatable to the blue collar people. Okay, if you ask me today, people look at me today, right? And where I go and have my dinners and whatnot. But I can still go and talk to my...
So you're saying you're like Donald Trump, lah,
No,
bro.
I'm not. Please don't. You know, this is why I try to, because I'm not even there.
Yeah,
Right?
But yeah.
You understand?
So he can perambulate upstairs and he can perambulate
Correct.
downstairs. Yeah.
Correct. I
He's
can
a
see...
man of the people.
I can be the man of the people.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
Because that is what people do not understand here, especially here, where the narrative from the mainstream media has been to portray him as this elite billionaire who has no understanding of the common people and actually are conning all these people that he is a man of the people, right? The fact is he is, because that's where he came from, right? And just the fact that he can eat McDonald's with forks and
He did actually before the elections, right? He was actually at McDonald's.
So that's
He
the
was making
skit.
chips
So
or something, right?
that's the skit.
For the cameras.
Yeah,
lah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
looked at I look at how he was eating pizza with fork and spoon. I said, okay, that's the dichotomy of what
Yeah.
we are looking at,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So once you understand that character, it is no surprise to me how he carry himself when he campaigns and he become president, because that is the Sungai Petani in him. And he does not want to change. He will not change, because when you are at that level of wealth, you don't care. And that is the problem that actually he faced when he first ran for the first time for the presidency, and also the second time for the presidency, because the Republican establishment party does not want Donald Trump.
Because he doesn't actually really...
Because he does.
No, he doesn't really belong there. He's not from that same color and ilk
He's not
of
of
them. Yes.
Right?
So there was such a shock.
Right? He was not of them, because the Republican Party at that particular time was basically the party of the corporate, the elites.
Yeah.
Okay? And when he was running in 2016, the party wanted Jeb Bush. When he was running in 20, of course, when you are the incumbent, there is nobody against you already. So in 2020, it was him and Biden, right? But when he was running in 2024, he was still not the favorite candidate. Basically, they were trying to push Nikki Haley, So in spite of the Republican establishment, he won. And the reason why is because he's not of them. They do not want him, but the party rank and file, the party supporters and the independents that were voting for him wanted their guy, right? And therefore, what you have seen today, now we talk about the governance side, right? I think it was a blessing that he lost to Biden in 2020 because it gave him because the first year, he's never been a politician. He's never been in government. He was still trying to find his way on how to manage this governing of the US federal government as the president. And you can see in his cabinet, it was a split. There were people who were from the establishment and there were people who was from his background.
So it's quite clear that the team he's put in place around him this time are complete and utter loyalists. Complete and utter. It's complete undying loyalty, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. There's no strain from the allegiance. They're all on the same team. Whether it's Besant or whether it's even this guy who's a parody, this guy Nick Adams from Australia, now America, they're all very, very much in the MAGA team.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
But I would say from a substantive point of view, Besant is very, very smart and very qualified. And so is Lutnick. But who is this Nick Adams guy? I mean, he just seems to
That's an ambassador.
Yes, but this is a bit about Nick Adams, right?
Well,
Australian guy, immigrant parents, has always been an avowed US supporter. He emigrated, I think, to the US like 20 years ago. He loves all the things that rednecks love in America. Pickup trucks, hooters, chicken burgers, fishing, hunting, that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
He's a bit of a joker about the fact that Trump puts him in Muslim majority conservative Malaysia. It's another enigma to me.
Okay, I will just touch a bit on Nick Adams because I have not researched his background.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
You mentioned it to me, I think sometime this morning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The news just came out.
I saw the news that came out and I'm that's the only thing I know of him.
Yeah.
Right? And I found it very interesting in this way. Because the way the title was the mainstream was, and it was on Kini, Malaysia Kini, I think.
Yeah, so obviously
right?
he's been written up in the negative press.
It's so Malaysia Kini or whatever FMT or whatever that we get here basically comes from the US
Syndicated
mainstream
press,
media,
yeah.
which is very much left-leaning.
Yeah, syndicated.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and here's the funny anecdote that I will tell you that I find very amusing to me actually, and it is emblematic of what how the mainstream media covers it, right?
Yeah.
So I'll read to you quickly.
Yeah.
Right? It says here, Adams' content also long raised eyebrows for its odd sexual nature. With posts like, a foursome with the boys will be the most fun you will ever have in your entire life. There is nothing better than having a few too many domestics in the company of other alpha males.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, you know when I saw I saw the tweet that he put out there, he was talking about golfing.
Yeah.
Right? Now in golfing, and I'm an avid golfer, right? In golfing,
it's a foursome, it's a twosome.
It's a twosome.
4-ball, 2-ball, right?
4-ball, 2-ball. If you got 2 balls,
So
it's a twosome.
this is the
if
press-
a 3-ball is a threesome.
3-ball,
if it's a 4-ball, it's a foursome. So can you imagine the mainstream media takes something completely innocuous and made it to be something sexually deviant?
Yeah.
How ridiculous is that? And it appears on our mainstream media as him being perverted. I mean, so I will not say that on that, but I'm going to give you another example. Okay? I'm going to give you another example of how mainstream media plays his cabinet.
Yeah.
Okay? And then, if you don't mind, I will go into how I see his cabinet pickings this round. Okay? I'll give you Pete Hegseth. All right?
Very divisive.
Very, very divisive.
Yeah.
All right? If you read the mainstream media narrative that what is being told to from the mainstream media, he's basically a Fox guy, a Fox commentator. Nothing more than that. So he's a media guy, he does all that. Okay, he has a military background a bit, but nothing much more is said of them. Or of that basically he's a Fox guy, so Trump is just getting a Fox guy, And then I remember something going viral where Tammy Duckworth, who was on the committee for confirmation, who's of Thai origin, was asking Pete Hegseth about ASEAN and to name an ASEAN country, and Hegseth couldn't answer. Okay? And everybody here made fun of that. Now, let me put it this way in perspective, which is what people don't know. Hegseth is a ranked military command I believe it was in the Marines, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I'm number one, and he's a decorated soldier. All right, and that matters a lot to actually the military. What they have in the Pentagon when Trump comes in is a bunch of bloated bureaucracy where the generals are promoted more than they've got more generals than what they had in World War II. It's utterly ridiculous because, like any bureaucracy, it it will increase itself. And they had to deal with the dismantling of all this DEI and woke stuff. And what they want is actually a hit in the army. Two things, if you look at what Trump's cabinet people are, they all can talk. They all are very good on camera, right? And Pete Hegseth is. And he is a pure blood military guy, a decorated military guy. All right? So he doesn't care about the generals.
What I care about is results. And
right.
Right.
And that is what Trump cares about, is the result.
The results.
Right? And then I'm going back to this whole thing when Tammy was asking him about who are in ASEAN. That is irrelevant to the Secretary of Defense. Let me put it that way. Right? Yeah. That is a question you pose to Marco Rubio, who is the State Secretary, basically the Foreign Minister of the United States.
Yep.
Right? For Pete Hegseth, his job is actually to rebuild the army, the military of the United States to be a lethal fighting force. And that he has done. So that's the bottom line that Trump cares about. Now you look at all his cabinet. Actually, I'm very impressed with his cabinet members, right? You and I don't disagree already. Besson has been the star.
Yeah. I mean, they've done a good job so far, yeah.
All right. I think I am actually equally impressed with Marco Rubio. He didn't run a good presidential campaign, but I think coming into the job, he has actually extremely impressed me. If you look at like you say, Caroline Leavitt is like
astonishing. She's
astonishing,
incredible. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Actually, if you go the line of every cabinet secretary.
So I was watching. So Trump Part 1. Yes. I was very disdainful of Trump Part 1 because I think it was all over the shop. Trump Part 2 and the whole lead up to the elections in November last year, I was watching him very closely, especially in the podcast where it's long form. In long form, you can't hide. You can't hide your colors, right?
Right.
And I was analyzing his words, and one of the key things that he was talking about was his need to surround himself with very, very. So he likes intelligent people. He likes clever people.
Yeah.
He likes to surround himself with very accomplished people, right? And that has actually played itself out because whether it's Lutnick or Bessent or Rubio or Leavitt or any one of these people, they're very, very clever. And you can see the intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So I like that about him.
Yeah.
Unlike, for example, Kamala. My God, Kamala was incredibly stupid, Biden was not of this world anymore, right? And many of the people that were of the Dems at that era, they were, I don't know where they
I
were.
think
Even Fauci was like all over the shop, right? So what I'm trying to say is that the hyperbole and the caricatures aside, from a substantive point of view, I do think that the Trump administration is on the right track. I think so.
And this is the difference between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0.
Correct, because he's figured it out.
Because he has figured it out, and he had 4 years to actually plan out everything and figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? And the thing is this, it's also here goes about reading the tea leaves. In my experience in business, and even in my career when I started out in Shell, I've noticed something. When I was in Shell, I realized something. The bosses that I don't like are very insecure about people who are smart. Okay? The bosses that are good, they want the smart guys.
Yeah.
They want the guys who are actually going to push back on them.
Irrespective of color or stripe.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Right? So, and I personally myself do that. Because why? And as I went through my career, I realized something. Why this happens? Because when you are equally smart and you are capable as a boss, right? You want people who are smarter than you. You want people who are actually can make your job easier and make you succeed.
Because better decisions have a positive compounding effect.
Exactly.
Right?
And you also want these smart people to push back on you and have a good decision. But at the end of the day, as the boss, when a consensus does not come about very clearly, you will make the last call.
Yeah.
Okay? So I see the same characteristics in this cabinet and the way it's being run. Can you imagine this? I can guarantee you, I would say more than even 50% of Bangga does not want Tulsi Gabbard in that cabinet. Because why? As recently as 3 months before he was in, I think, before the election, she was still a Democrat, or still an independent coming out of a Democratic Party, right? Robert Kennedy
was a Dem. Of the Kennedys, I mean, of course, right? The traditional, right, the Democrats.
Right.
And he switched sides because he just couldn't stand what they stood up for anymore.
Besson is gay.
That's true.
Right?
A lot of people gloss over that, but it's true,
But none of the mainstream media will ever give him credit for all this.
Yeah.
If you want to really talk diversity of thought and work life and career, etc., his cabinet is more diverse than anybody else.
Actually, to be honest, I don't care about diversity.
But nobody gives a shit about diversity.
I care about quality of decision making.
Exactly. The competition, the competency, the intellectual capacity, and the ability to get things done, bottom line, is the most important thing. Right? So this is what we want in our people, and that's what he has brought in his cabinet. You know, and you gotta give the guy credit. And you peel that layer, you ask yourself then, right? The only reason why that has happened, that tells you a lot about Donald Trump's capability, his character, and what he actually is.
Let's also talk about the fact that he's on his second and final term.
Right.
Also the fact that he's in his late 70s. He's a man on a mission. He doesn't have a lot of time. I think he's got a year and a bit to the midterms, right? So he's trying to push through as much as he can in the first 1 or 2 years, which is, of course, understandable.
Yes.
As you enter the second half of your campaign, of your tenure, that's it. You're trying to consolidate from there on, right? What I really care about from his administration, my point of view, is the fact that a fiscally healthy America is good for the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot go on being as indebted as it is. It cannot be as deficit-ridden as it is. And I think what he's doing in terms of the tariffs, all these discussions, which are quite, they can be quite ridiculous in terms of the narrative. But I see what they're trying to do. He's trying to right what he perceives as economic instabilities and wrongs done to the US economy. I think he's trying to grow his way out of trouble. He's trying to address the expenses. He's trying to address revenues as well. Which to me, if we're sitting in this part of the world, Sam, a healthy America is good for the rest of the world. A sick America is bad for the rest of the world.
I agree.
Because you do need, to me, in a multipolar world, 2 or 3 healthy big
Economies,
boys out there,
yeah.
right? To then compete and not to seek economic superiority or military superiority over one another, but to everybody to coexist. Because if everybody's healthy and rich, well, then everybody's happy.
Yeah.
You never saw poor countries or you never saw rich countries fight with each other because they're just too full at the dinner table to fight, right?
Yeah.
It's only when you're poor and impoverished, that's when you start to see a lot of problems at home. Do you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So from a selfish standpoint, I want America to be healthy again. And I think between what Sleepy Joe is doing and between what Donald Trump is doing, I'm in bed with DJT, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know,
Like,
for
beyond
me,
the hyperbole.
For me, I mean, it's not even hyperbole if I were to say that actually the previous 4 years with Biden, if you've got Kamala into the presidency,
already finish.
the US would be in deep trouble.
Yeah.
Deep trouble.
You would have seen heightened tensions in the Middle East. They would have gone even to war with more people, and it would have been a big problem.
Yeah. And so to me, what I'm seeing is not just a paradigm shift in terms of policies and philosophies. It's actually, and the good thing is, as you said, he's got 4 years, right? And I can see actually something I noticed, and I was mentioning this to a friend. What I've noticed is actually that I have never ever seen any president before him has done. How J.D. Vance, as the vice president, is all the time being involved and actually contributed in major meetings and major discussion with world leaders and major conferences where he is being delegated the authority to speak on behalf of the presidency is nothing short of a mentorship by a CEO to his heir apparent COO.
That in itself was a gamble, because Vance is an untried and untested politician. He comes literally out of nowhere as a newbie. And look, I mean, let's not forget, Donald Trump is 78 years old, right? He can kick it anytime. If that moment should ever come, this guy, he's going to have to live into it. He's going to have to grow into those boots, essentially. But that's the essence of Donald Trump. He's a risk taker,
Well,
right?
not just that. If you look at it, right, it's not just that. It's actually, here's the thing, and I don't want you to say again. So that is compared to Donald. But my experience is the same, in the sense like this. Number one, if you look at his cabinet or the Republican Party today compared to the Democrats, they have what we call in sports in American parlance
An A-team.
Not just an A-team, you got a deep bench.
Yeah, you got
right?
a deep bench. Yeah, that's
you
right.
You got a deep bench, okay? So, if Vance doesn't work out, Rubio easily can step in, right? But I didn't know of J.D. Vance until the campaigning starts, and he was called out as the VP, as the VP nominee, right? But I tell you, as you rightly put, I've seen him on 3-hour podcast, 2-hour podcast, right? You cannot hide the guy on that.
He's held it together.
My God, is he good?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, when you've got, and as I said,
Bro, the flirt lawyer bro. He's a lawyer. He's Harvard. He's smart
Yale,
guy.
I think he's Yale.
Yale, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he comes
Right.
from the hinterland, right? He's a country boy, so he's seen he's had hard knocks, but he's also
Dude,
done really well.
His wife is a Brahmin lawyer.
Bro, married
Okay?
an Indian girl, bro.
Bro, yeah. So
I like that about him. By the way,
you think a Brahmin Indian is gonna let her husband be
anything less than an elite? No, elite thinker at least,
right? And yet he comes from an even I would say unlikely story.
Yeah, I read the story. He comes from a hard part of the world, man. You know what I mean?
So I think,
like literally scratching and living from the earth.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So I think you've got the makings, actually, especially with at what position the Democrats are in. At this point, you're looking at their popularity as a party. The last poll I saw was maybe approval rating of slightly 23% at best. So and you look at the people they have that is supposedly on the leadership. Hakeem Jeffries is a joke. So now what you've got is a deep bench Republican Party, and I'm gonna make a bet that you're gonna see after Trump another 2 terms of a Republican presidency. So that means you're gonna have 12 years of consistent policy that is not the old Republican Party, but basically Trumpian.
So as someone who's interested in markets, right, I'm actually quite optimistic, because I think that if all things go well and nothing unexpected happens, which of course it has unexpected things happen, but if all things go well, we're going to see an enlightened era of asset prices, which essentially go through the roof, and financial success for the US, which I think is going to be very good for people who hold US assets, whether it's in the share market or whether it's in the new digital assets realm. I like that. I like the fact that this might happen. So the other message then is, of course, if you believe that this narrative plays itself out, go and get some assets and ride the wave along, because it can be a ticket to economic security.
And I think also, I think Trump will sort it out with China. And
if there's one person that can just call up the phone and go, "Hey Z, let's have a chat," it's him, right?
Yeah.
He'll just get on the phone.
It's
"Hey,
a businessman way of doing things.
Right? Let's put our cards on the table, right? Let's sort it out.
Yeah.
Right?
You know how
he's talked about how he's actually called Vlad and say, "Hey Vlad, let's have a chat."
Yeah.
That's it.
It's like this. It's very simple.
If I want to do a deal with you, I'll just call you and say, "Sam, hey, you free for lunch tomorrow, 12:30?
Yeah.
Let's have a chat."
You know what will happen if you and I we're doing the deal?
Yeah.
Basically, the first thing is that our people will start doing it. Will start the negotiation at this high a price, and your side is going, "No, I want this higher price," right? And then they will start bad mouthing each other, because why? I'm going to play good cop, bad cop, right? And then the next thing that's going to happen is that I don't care whether I call you or you call me. At the end of the day, I can tell you about Trump. He doesn't give a shit whether Z is going to call him or he's going to call G. It doesn't matter to him. Yeah. What matters is actually at the end of the day, we're going to end up somewhere here, and it's going to be good for both parties, right? What the hell if I call him?
That is the essence of all good deals. All good deals happen with good outcomes for both sides. That's right. The essence of a good deal.
That's right. But if you look at the narrative, the
100% tariffs and this and that. Oh my God.
These guys.
This is noise.
Exactly. That's the right word. All these are noise for a businessman. Okay? I've got a huge market that you want in.
You've got a huge market that I want in.
Let's negotiate. Let's work it out.
Let's sort it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's end with this, right?
Sure. I think that's pretty nice ending. Yeah.
For the millions of people that are listening to this podcast, right? We're going to send an open invitation to Nick Adams, the incoming US ambassador to Malaysia, and say, look, when you are free and if your time predisposes you to do so, come have a chat with us. And,
that would be great, wouldn't it?
Hopefully, right?
Yeah.
It'll be good fun.
They will good fun. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Any thoughts? Yeah.
No.
As usual, write in. Tell us what you think.
We want to answer your questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ask him questions. Don't ask me questions. He's the handsome one, not me. Okay. Man, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
There you go.